Hey everyone. So I am the Kings and Queens Foundation, which I am vice president of, wanted to create a conversation because we know that in order to create change, you must create the conversation for change. So I and the president of the foundation, Leo Adams, decided that we wanted to gather a few phenomenal men in our community to get their opinion about how they feel about the way the world is going today. We didn't just want anybody. We wanted some powerful men who are dedicated to our community. Is there a solution to all of this? If there is a solution, how do we get it done? Our intention is for you, the viewer, to walk away with something that will encourage you to use your voice. Use your voice. It matters. You matter. Enjoy.
My name is Demore Morton. I'm here by way of Memphis, Tennessee, a veteran, a father, a minister, and just a servant of the community.
Zeph Baker, born, reared here in Columbus, Georgia, business owner and active in the community here in Columbus.
Aaron Guest. I'm a historian and educator at Spencer High School.
Hello, everyone. I'm attorney Teddy Reese.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marshall Greg Countryman.
So let me say this first. We had Ahmaud Arbery and then George. Right. I'm young. I know my place, right? I'm still a sponge. I'm still soaking things in, right? I want to know, why did it take for someone of color to lose their life for us to wake up? Or have we always been woke and just never really thought about it in a way?
Well, I think that this has been going on for a long, long time. I did a presentation a couple of years back called Policing in the 21st Century.
Right.
A lot of things that you see today that we're marching over, that we're frustrated over now, if you go back and if you research, you will see African Americans marching for injustice,
Right.
Police brutality. You go back through the civil rights era, you see the same thing, but it was a different style of happening now. And what's happened today in the 21st century is that we have the Y generation, we have the millennial generation, and it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, what color you are.
Okay.
They see things one way, and so their tolerance for injustice is equal. They want answers to it.
Right.
And so I think that the younger generation has really pricked the conscience of many people, but it's sad that it would take, because in '92 we had Rodney King.
Right.
And so
Right.
that started from there. But what happened is that we start seeing things with the Rodney King. People were outraged, riots started, marches. Then other things started to happen, and we start seeing it so much to where I feel like that our community became numb to it. And so it took social media to show things live, and everyone had the same emotion about it. And I think that helped to prick not only the heart, but the consciousness of America, because the whole world saw it.
Right.
And now all eyes are on America.
Right.
And when we see things that happen in Brunswick, that hit close to home.
Right.
But we've had something else that hit closer to home. I believe in 2003 or 2004, we had the death of Kenneth Walker here.
Right.
And so we just have to be mindful of where we are, and that we need to be willing to go there. And in our community, I have known for many, many years, noticed that we were not really ready to go there. We would talk around circles. Go ahead.
When you say go there, what are you referring to when you say go there?
The marches that we see today, with Takara and Shamika and
Right.
Toya, that brought in thousands
Right.
of people.
Right.
Now you see people, the white collar, the blue collar, those with no collars, white males, black males, young, old, everybody is in this together now. And so when you start seeing it from the national stage, trickling down to the state and the local stage, it becomes a movement.
Right.
And so I believe that we're in the embryonic stages of seeing a movement.
Okay.
So with that being said,
No, go ahead,
I'm
Ted.
sorry.
You're about to say
Oh,
something.
I was just going to add what Marshall Countryman, soon to be Sheriff
Right,
Countryman.
come on now.
Congratulations.
First.
Congratulations. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Right, come on now.
Absolutely.
Right,
Give that brother his credit.
right.
But what Marshall Countryman articulated for us is the cycle that you see us go through sometimes as a people.
Okay.
We experience tragedy, we speak out on it, we react to it, burn a couple things down,
Right. Come on now.
and then we go back home.
Right.
And every time, we have this newer generation asking, like your generation, asking, is this new? Like, does this just come about? And to me, that's confirmation that we have continued to fail generation after generation after generation after generation without appropriately dealing with the problem. We have to take the energy from the activism, from the marches, from the rallies, and we have to turn it into policies. And when the people that are ultimately in charge of implementing the policies will not accept your word on those policies, that's when we have to take our action to civic engagement,
That's right.
which is voting.
Okay.
Because I've always said, and I continue to say, even out in public, that don't expect someone to vote for you who don't know you. Too often we have people that show up in our communities just when it's time for an election. They show up at our churches. Can't go to their churches, but they show up at our churches. They get just enough of our community, and that takes them over the top with the election.
But Teddy, as a young person, because I see it, right? How can you tell me that my vote matters? Now, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only young person that thinks. And this answer may be coming out of because of what they want us to think. They want us to think our vote does matter. But tell me, as a young man, how do I know that my vote matters? Look what happened to Stacey.
Well, you got to give your vote a try.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you give it a try by we got to get behind candidates that we know are going to make the changes that we want to see made.
Okay.
Like, for instance, we just had an election back in June where the election operation itself in South and East Columbus was dismal.
Right.
How many of our elected leaders have actually spoken out about the fact that people at Canaan Baptist Church stood in line 3 to 5 hours to vote? How many of them have spoken out about the fact that when people got to Our Lady of Lords that morning, the machines weren't even on? How many have actually stood up and said anything about the fact of the people at Hosley Monument not being able to cast their vote appropriately? Then we get right here and pat each other on the back like everybody's doing a good job. I'm not going to parade you when you're being paid with my tax dollars and you're not performing your job.
Absolutely.
This let aside being a candidate that was potentially impacted by that. So just this basic responsibility. So those are basic things that we have to fix, but it starts with those small victories.
Right.
It starts with motivating our people to get out, get engaged, just like what he just said.
Right.
But we got to take it beyond the rallies. We got to take it beyond the marches. We got to put it into action.
But if I could just take a quick second
Go ahead.
to just tell you why your vote matters.
Okay.
Look at what happened in this last election cycle in June.
Right.
We've never had an African American sheriff in nearly 200 years candidate to win a primary. Well, not a primary, but to be a candidate that can win.
Right.
It's because y'all stood in line when it was raining, and you didn't give up. You didn't give out, and you didn't give in. That's why your vote matters. We have a new district attorney. That's why your vote matters, because without you guys standing in line, without you guys having the fortitude to do what you did, that this would have never happened. Because if we take the attitude that our vote don't count, none of this would have changed.
Okay.
And now what you guys have done is that you guys have kicked open the doors and you cracked one glass ceiling. Now we got to push it open so that everybody can come through.
Right.
And speaking of what Mr. Reese was talking about, the elections and the issues that we just had, I think that's really important. I think if we don't make a fuss or make some noise about that, we're going to see the same thing in November.
Speak a little louder.
I actually reached out to the elections office, and they basically said it was one of those issues. New machinery, the workers didn't feel comfortable. And I'm thinking to myself, if they don't feel comfortable, they need training now. So in November, we won't have these problems. So like Mr. Reese was saying, we have to put our voice out there, be engaged, and make noise so people are aware. Because if you don't, then people won't know, and it's just going to go under the bridge. In November, we're going to have the same issue.
And we got to be smart enough to recognize the excuses too. Because 3 weeks of early voting, I guess all of those people were trained fine. on the day of the election on the north side of town.
Right.
I guess all those people were comfortable.
Exactly.
As they told you they weren't comfortable. I guess they were comfortable.
Right.
Because you didn't hear about 3 and 5 hour waiting up out for Solomon Road.
Right.
You didn't hear about 3. Come on, Zeph.
It's
Come
real.
on, well, come
It's
on,
real.
brother. You know, it's real.
It's
You know,
real.
my thing is, if you're going to be a leader, don't be a selective leader. Be a full-time leader.
Right.
Don't speak out when it's convenient. Speak out when it's uncomfortable.
Right.
Speak out when you may be potentially talking to somebody who works directly with your husband's within the same organization. I'm just saying,
Right. I
in
hear you.
general.
I hear you, brother.
I don't care about the relationships. You're serving the people. If a relationship is a problem, let the seat go and let somebody get it who will say something for the people.
I hear you.
Right.
I hear you. Did you want to answer, Pastor?
Well, I'm in and out about it. I don't disagree with systematic prevention, right? Because that's if you think of what we fought for, what we marched across Edmund Bridge for, was to defeat systematic oppression of voting rights.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
If I can't stop you from being there, then I add little gimmicks there to stop your people from getting there, right? Because I know what your voice will do. I know what your buying power is. I think what the new generation has learned, the youngsters have you learned, is that they know what buying power is. Most of them are business owners. Most of them don't even complete college before they've started a
Right.
business that's going to change the epicenter of the entire thing. So they're a little further than my generation. I'm almost 41.
Right.
So they're a little further than I was when I was mad at Ferguson a couple of years ago. Once it got up to the court steps and got shot down, I was a little discouraged.
Right.
They kept going. And they were going behind the scenes, but they kept going, and we
That's
stopped.
Right.
So I just think they understand where they hit people where it hurts. You get what I'm saying? It's no more just the march. It's more about, I can mess with your dollar a little bit.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Okay,
Right.
so you don't want us there? Guess what we can do? We won't show there.
Absolutely.
But we'll put money in different places. So
No.
I just feel like it's about that. However, what I don't want to happen, in the middle of everything that's going on, I understand racism. I understand all of that, y'all. And I'm with it. But I still have love for people. You get what I'm saying?
I get you.
And I want to.
I'm not saying I don't.
I'm not saying you don't.
Right.
I just want to further express that.
Absolutely.
Don't let what you see make you forget what you believe.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying? The one thing about our people is that we've been resilient. We've always had the hand of God over us, no matter what we withstood.
That's
If
right.
you don't
That's
know
right.
your history, understand that we
That's
would
right.
march. When we first took Edmund Bridge, we took it and we were beat the first day.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm
Right.
saying? And we came back.
Right.
And if we understand it correctly, Dr. King kneeled and prayed, and he didn't take it that day
Right.
because he understood who God was. Do not take God out the
Absolutely.
equation.
Absolutely.
Don't let the evilness and that separate us. That's what I'm saying.
Now, with that being said, I want to ask this question, and I want to hear your view on what Marshall Countryman said. How do we keep up the momentum in the community and educate the Black communities as well as the poor communities, all the way up to the well-esteemed communities about the
Rich
importance
community.
of
Right.
going to the voting polls? And how do we keep that momentum up in lieu of everything that we've been experiencing in this country in reference to racism, systemic racism, injustices all over across the board? What are the solutions behind that? We hear a lot of suggestions, and I have yet to hear some solutions by our most influential people in our community.
Now, Zed, I want to say something that you said recently in a video to piggyback on this. You said in the video, we are miles away from Atlanta, but we are 100 years behind. Right? So can
Right.
you elaborate on that? Because I think that ties into what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
What did you mean when you said that?
Well, I think exactly it was we're 100 miles from Atlanta, but we're 100 years behind.
Right.
And if you look at, despite the racial differences, economic differences, no matter what side of town you may be from, everybody wants the opportunity to pursue their dreams.
Right.
And that's really what we're getting at. And when one side of town, when a certain section of town, their schools still may not be getting the same resources that other schools get. And see, I'm born and reared here in Columbus, Georgia. And I remember when I have the history of, well, Mr. Guest does as well, because we went to Carver High School. And in Carver High, in the 90s, it was about 92, 93, when they shut down Baker High School, which you had 3 predominantly African-American high schools here in Columbus, Georgia, which was Carver High School, Spencer, both with amazing history, as well as Baker at that time. Didn't always, Baker was not always predominantly African-American, but over time, because of the migration as far as how people moved, they became the 3rd African-American school. So you had 2 schools that were shut down. Excuse me, 1 school that was shut down and 2 merged into 1. And it happened to be Carver High School. Well, you saw where Dr. Coleman, Andrew Coleman. And there's a lot of things that impacted this community that we're still seeing and haven't gotten over yet to this day that happened with the merger of Baker and Carver High School. But Dr. Coleman was after the fact that Carver was the first magnet school in Muskogee County. And there were certain monies and resources that were to be sent federally and state dollars to Carver High School because it was a math, science, magnet. They redirected some of those funds to Columbus High School because as a magnet, if you want to pursue that field, no matter where you're from, you are supposed to go to that magnet in order to have those resources and that curriculum. Well, the kids from the north side of town did not want to come to Carver. So they redirected the funds and kept them at places like Columbus and Hardaway. Well, that crippled what was being done at Carver, on top of the fact that they had an influx of students that doubled the attendance. And so we were at a disadvantage. So I've seen where back in the day it was segregation. You know, back in the 60s and 70s, people marched because, hey, we want the same books. You know, give us the books we don't want 30-year-old books. But we've had that to happen right here in Columbus, Georgia. I remember as students, am I right, Mr. Guest? We were 16 years old at that time. And not everybody, but some of us, we decided to boycott. High school students left the classrooms, and we walked. At that time, the Board of Education was right around the corner, right here behind Warner Williams right there. That was before they built the city. But we walked from Carver down 8th Street, through East Carver Heights, Buena Vista Road, came down this hill, and we sat on the school board that morning. We did not eat lunches. Everybody was bringing sack lunches because if the school gets their money from the lunch count. That's how you count the attendance. Is the lunch count. So we said we aren't going to eat. Everybody brought their lunch. But we have been marching in this city. We have been protesting in this city, young people. You understand? And I've seen the same results over time. I've seen when Kenny Walker, when he was fatally shot by a sheriff deputy. And I saw the uproar. And we look at what happened here lately. You're talking about a couple of thousand. We had over 10,000 people who marched from the Civic Center to the government building. Am I right? Because that was your frat brother. He was a Megan. And people came from all around the state, all around the nation, right here in Columbus, Georgia. I've seen the same thing. Yet there was some co-opting by a few to redirect that energy, like Attorney Reese was saying, so that you never get to the results. You never get to the ultimate goal. And that is real change, not just for a certain segment of the population. That's where you get everything mixed up. It's not just for blacks, because you'll have whites and other ethnic groups who want to say, well, you all are being racist. You all want to make it all about you. It's about what I started off from the beginning, and that is you want the opportunity, no matter what area you grow up in any city, to be able to pursue your dream.
Yes.
And that gets back to what you had mentioned. We're 100 miles behind, but we're 100 miles away, but 100 years behind. Atlanta has, it doesn't matter if you're in Buckhead
Right.
or if you're in where's greater in Decatur.
Right.
You have the opportunity to pursue your dream, at least you feel like
Absolutely.
it. Whether you're South Atlanta, College Park, Benjamin Banneker, over on the West End, or you could be in North Atlanta. It does not matter. You have the opportunity to where you feel like you can pursue your dream.
Right.
And that's where we have to get to, not only nationwide,
That's good.
but I'm concerned with where the rubber meets the road is locally.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
how do we get there?
That's how do we infiltrate that? What you said, they will take in turn and take the resources from a school after having doubled the population of students in one school, remove the funds. How do you infiltrate that and stop that from happening in our
Well,
future?
I've learned, let me just say is I don't want to dominate the conversation because I do have a lot to say on it. So I try to be,
This is important.
respectful.
Yeah.
I don't think it starts with the politicians or those who are in political office.
Okay.
It doesn't start there.
Right.
It starts with the people,
Absolutely.
the citizenry,
Right.
the constituents,
Right.
because the politicians, your elected officials,
Right.
they are what you call representatives.
Right.
Okay? When I look in the mirror, I'm not looking at myself. I'm looking at a representative of myself. So if I want the representative in the mirror can only do what the real image does. If I move left, the representative is going to move that way. You understand?
Absolutely.
The politicians are the representatives. The people change has to come from the people.
Right. Right.
And when you see weak representatives who will not do anything,
Right. Right.
you cannot just question them.
Absolutely.
You have to look at the citizenry.
Right.
And if the constituents are not demanding anything, you can't expect the representatives to demand anything. You understand? Now, I know there's some other caveats to that because we pick our representatives to do the things that we may not be able to do.
Right.
You understand? It's like the preacher. That we want the preacher to say everything because we know we have to go work for the Fortune 500 companies that we need the preacher to call out. The preacher's on our payroll, so we're going to pay you to say it while we sit quiet and keep everything going.
Okay.
But we have to do more than that when it comes to our representatives. I'm sorry, Attorney Riggs. Have to do more than that when it comes to our representatives. Yes, we choose them to handle things that we may not do, but we still have to hold them accountable.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we want it to be just as important to the community as it is to our representatives with the platform to go about and make that change.
But see,
So,
it goes back to what Matthew was talking about, though. How do we maintain that? Because it may be
that's
important
what I'm
this week, but guess what? You don't get to make any change in your elected representative 2 more years from now.
Absolutely.
People will say, oh, there's a recall process, but it's so difficult. We're most likely not going to get that done. So the best opportunity you have is during the point in which we're having an election.
Right.
And if you look at just this last election, Columbus had one of the highest primary turnouts in the state of Georgia.
Right.
And I think part of that was because we had a lot more younger people on the ballot.
Absolutely.
And a lot more younger people came out and got engaged. Historically, I've been at one point one of the youngest people on the ballot. He's been at one point one of the youngest people on the ballot. And we haven't seen that energy and engagement. But you had somebody like Marshall Countryman running for sheriff to make history there. You had 3 or 4 other young people on the ballot. And it was the energy. It was the energy at the time. But everything Zeph said is absolutely correct, especially when you get to talking about from the school district perspective and him talking about, the combination of what created Carver. Right now, you're looking at the school board. We don't have a black man on the school board.
Right.
So who's speaking for our children? What kind of policies are being implemented? That's why leadership matters.
Right.
In those positions, it matters. Right now, we just had a group to go before city council practically begging for subpoena right for a citizen review board. Well, you got 6 solid votes. You're not going to get that done. But this is a majority minority city, and we can't get in that large city council seat.
Okay.
That's a big problem.
But see, it goes back to it has, and let me go back to this last election. Because yes, we did have young people who came out, and they're the ones who we had younger people on the ballot, and it brought young people out. But we cannot forget the perfect storm that happened. You had the national news.
Right.
You had the pandemic.
Right.
You had the issues that were brought to the forefront nationally,
Right.
and it allowed it to be impacted and to be seen in the local elections.
Right.
We may not, let me say that, have a perfect storm for many elections, decades.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
So that's why I think it's important for us to understand it has to come from within our citizenry.
Right.
Because we have to be able to iron sharpen iron,
Right.
and be able to rub elbows and to be able to get those sparks and enough sparks together to be able to start the fire so that we can for it to continue to burn, not just when a national issue is being brought to the forefront.
Right.
You understand? We have to keep that going here locally, not just to November to get my dear good brother in,
Right.
but 2 years from now.
Right.
You understand? And if people have to stay woke, we cannot be asleep here in Columbus, Georgia.
Right.
Another thing, I know my good brother, and I'm Christian as well.
Oh boy.
Okay, so I believe in loving everybody. You know, first of all, you know, there's 2 great commandments. Okay, to love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul.
That's right.
You understand? The
Right.
second one is like unto itself to love your neighbor
Right.
as yourself.
Right.
Okay, so I stand on those. I live by those.
Right.
But it's important for us to realize that we cannot start practicing diversity
Right.
if we have not gotten our one verse together as a people.
Right.
You understand?
That's a good one.
We
Very
need
good
a universe
That's
of
good.
one verse
Yes,
first.
That's good.
So we need to be able to speak, and that's why I'm so happy, good brother, that you all invited us here, so we can bring our voices together, share thoughts.
Absolutely.
But we can't start. The first time we start thinking about how can we better ourselves, our communities, and things like that,
Right.
then we always start thinking about diversity,
Right. Right.
and only we do that.
Yeah. Yes.
We do that first.
Right.
Yeah.
And instead of doing that second or third,
Right.
you have to get your house together first.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
Go ahead, Leo.
Well, no, I'm glad you said that because a house divided against itself cannot stand.
Right.
We live in a country where it's infiltrated with division. We got one party in red, one party in blue, Republican, Democrat. It's the division is there.
Not
So-
only that, it's broken homes.
It's broken
We don't have
homes.
no more fathers in the home anymore.
Yeah, it's a lot of things going on that we have to, like you said, target within our own community. And if we don't build that camaraderie within ourselves and love our brothers as ourselves, like God commanded us to, then we won't see. If you started off saying that we have to keep God in it, we can't do this without Him.
Right.
So with that structure, how do we get that message across? Now, even in the church, I'd love to hear what the church has to say about.
Well, that's dangerous. I don't want to overall speak for everybody's church.
Absolutely.
Because here's the problem. Just on Macon Road, where we're located at Living Faith, there are 5 other churches maybe within a 10-minute walk.
Right.
So the problem I see, which is every community, and me being from Tennessee, right, same as any other place.
Absolutely.
You can have churches side by side, and them brothers may never know each other.
Absolutely.
You get what I'm saying? And then that just goes to another separation that we have,
Right.
where people get to a place where they forget why we started.
Right.
We forget why we began this thing. You forget why you found faith in the first place. And then now that you're there, you have this sense of awareness that no one else is greater than what you found, right?
Right.
And that's not that cannot be the case. If you
Right.
got that many leaders sitting in a 5-minute radius, if all those leaders hit the block, if all those leaders open up their bread rooms or their places for people or battered women to come or men or fatherless homes to be able to function and get motivation and mentorship, imagine the change just there on Winton Road.
Right.
Imagine that change. So that's the citizenship that I think he's talking about.
Yes.
If you're gonna lead, then don't lead just on Sunday. I'm a young
minister, right? Don't lead just on Sunday, because we far beyond that. There's people getting murdered Monday, Tuesday,
Right.
Wednesday. His mom's is crying Thursday, Friday. We need some type of direction. What happens in a riot, it's violence that is unchanneled.
Right.
It's anger and rage that's unguided.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with being rageful. You should be upset when a brother loses his life to someone who didn't see their value. But guess what? If you don't go in and tell those young men and women you're valuable, it's gonna come out in the first thing they hear, whether it be Lil Wayne or whoever
But the
it might
challenge
be.
is getting them to understand that they're valuable in a culture where it's almost attacked to be pro-black. I'm
Right.
pro-black, but I'm not anti anything else.
Right.
When I say Black Lives Matter, to me, that doesn't mean that nobody else's lives
Right.
matter. That just means, as a black man, I'm very concerned about me having 2 bar cards and 3 degrees. I get pulled over and I'm still scared.
Right.
Okay.
And,
Right.
I still have issue, and I'm not saying that you said that. What I'm saying is there's this general consensus in society. Whenever we say something that tends to even get close to promoting the black culture, specifically
Right.
black
It's wrong.
men,
Right.
it becomes a problem.
Right.
Right.
We shouldn't be saying that. And I don't know why we haven't done anything for other cultures or other races to be offended by us saying that, because many of them promote themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, so I'm thinking about my heritage. I'm thinking about my child. I'm thinking about other little black boys and black girls that I see that often get left behind because we as a people are talked out of doing things that benefit us as a people.
That's right.
That's another problem, though, Pastor T. Some of the churches don't talk about real issues.
Right.
And
Well,
that's the
now
problem.
listen, just like you have in any council or political situation, there are people that have been sitting there for years. And that's what you have. You have a lot of older people that refuse to see a newer way.
Right.
They've been there for 30, 40 years,
Right.
man. Like some places have councils that you got to vote into to even be part of a church.
Right.
So I don't know of that. I can't even speak on them. What I can say is that you do have young believers who are not
Right.
the political believers. They don't believe in just the walls of the church. We
Right.
believe in getting out and talking to that brother that was shot or hurt.
That's
I'm
what
the
the
type
word
of
says.
believer that, if you remember and recall, in South Carolina when the massacre happened with the young Dylan Roof, right? The first thing the family did
Mother
was
Manuel.
what?
Forgave him.
They went down and prayed with him. See, now, so to many that's crazy, and I saw the backlash. However, if we gonna be that way, let's be that way. And it was the young man that did it.
Right.
When the cops shot the boy's brother in Houston,
They
the
backed
young
down.
brother
Yeah.
forgave. See, it's the
Yes.
youth
It's the
that's
youth
doing
bringing
what
it up.
is being needed, that's
Absolutely.
needed to be done. Ain't nothing wrong with being mad.
Right.
You can be mad forever. But anger hasn't changed it thus far, so
Right.
you should do what's needed. You
Right.
should be an example, even if the whole room doesn't side with you.
Exactly.
The greatest leaders I've ever seen took a step in the right direction, doing what was needed to be done.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Even if your people may not, that's a little crazy. They always they're going to step on you.
Right.
That's been the fight the entire time.
I mean,
But just because you're being stepped on doesn't mean that you don't have the responsibility to assume the right to keep moving in the right direction.
I mean, to put that in context, all week we have celebrated and rightfully celebrated the life of the Honorable John Robert Lewis.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And everybody
Right.
now want to use hashtag good trouble.
Right.
People who I've never even seen in the community
Right,
want to go
right.
to city
Come on
council
now.
meetings now,
Right.
talking about hashtag good trouble.
Right.
Well, when we were out there doing it, guess what? We were controversial.
Exactly.
When we were out there doing it, we were troublemakers.
Right.
When Zeph was out there
We're
talking about
great.
it,
Right.
you know, he's a problem.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but and when when the Honorable John Lewis did it back then, at the age of 24,
Right.
some people then said he was problematic.
Right. Right.
Now history want to judge it separately and differently, and it's that hypocrisy that we see in our own community
That's what-
sometimes.
Right.
It's the fact that it's like we don't want to see our younger leaders, particularly young black males,
on,
be
boy.
successful
Right.
in leadership, showing that we can have families.
Right.
We can have a functional wife and a functional child and,
Right.
and do what we're supposed to do and be financially on the right accord and not have any criminal history going on. They want to promote the brother as being the man on TV with the mugshot.
Come on
Right.
now.
They want us to be the ones in the orange jumpsuits with the shackles on. How dare they show educated brothers actually out there making a difference? So to me, it's hypocritical to sit here and act like they really are mourning the loss of a great man
Right.
when you have younger people out here now that's the new generational John Lewis's, and we are being chastised just as much as he was.
Absolutely.
That's the hypocrisy that bothers me.
I agree with that.
That's
The
right.
question I would pose at the table is I pose to every time I ask a question to youth, I say, if you can name me one television show that would give you a positive black face, I'll wait. Since the Cosby Show, Rock,
Right.
or something like that, there is no black male on television to give you, right?
That's
So
right.
we stripped Bill Cosby of even the greatness that we knew him of,
Criminalized it,
right?
But that was.
But I need you to see how the systematic approach has got there,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So now BET was sold to Viacom. Now
Right.
there go your black shows there.
Okay.
So there's not even anything for us to turn to even
Right.
educate ourselves on. Since the social media going to be our thing, there isn't any positive social media. So the social media has the ability to flip these moments when we out here marching and doing great things. One brother was out marching,
Right.
doing great things, right?
Right.
But the media flip it.
Right.
Because now they got Fox News, they got all those things that's ahead of you, and that's getting hit way more than Columbus's
Right.
situation is. So that's what we got to stop being distracted from. Because there was a lot of marches going on. Me not being from here, right?
Right.
I didn't even know what's happening because guess what happens? Facebook will pull a lot of the more popular hits in, and a lot of the local stuff will get pushed out if it doesn't get hit as much.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This includes another circle. He got a circle of followers, he got a circle of followers, and so on and so
Right.
on. So now it moves. But when that wasn't happening, guess what? CNN wins. So now we look like the angry African American people again. Now we look like we just being, whatever the stereotype is.
Which is the reason why we have to have these conversations. But bringing in these people and bringing educating our youth even more so, because I applaud the youth who are out there right now today standing up for something and not falling for the
Putting their
LBW.
lives on
They
the
are
line.
woke and they are
Right.
putting their lives on the line. They're standing out there taking rubber bullets, for a cause. We don't want that to be lost in translation, or no matter what the media turns it into, we don't want that to get lost. We have to rally behind them. We have to stand up. In our community, like you said, is what I'm most concerned about right here, because it does start with us right here in our community. I see such a racial divide. I see who holds the money, and they have this ability to go and turn profits to put somebody else at a disadvantage, or our people at a disadvantage. So again, this is one of the major concerns that I've had for the longest time. How do we get ahead of that in our community and focus on our youth, focus on our neighborhoods, to educate people more on the importance of coming together and build that trust. Now, that's a trust issue now, because they have gone unheard for so long, to where now they don't trust that their word or their needs and everything else is going to be taken for face value. It's about building that trust. Where do we go from here?
Well, I tell you, before Maynard Jackson became the mayor of Atlanta, they held the money then too.
Right.
Money don't matter who. A vote is a vote, and every person has a vote.
Right.
And it's the matter of them executing that vote. Because if you want to see the change, like I see groups on social media sometimes. Well, let's raise the money to fix the pool at Shirley B. Winston. Why should I have to do that when I pay taxes and I would like my taxes to go towards that?
Right.
But when I watch city council meeting, I see them put money towards other things that I'm not necessarily sanctioning.
Right.
But that's because I need representatives that's going to speak for me. And I hate to keep going back to this vote thing, but brother, it has power.
Yeah.
Hey, you talking about restoring the community? Our kids walking to school and some of them don't even have sufficient sidewalks. Why not?
Exactly.
You're hard pressed to drive on the north side and not find a street with sidewalks.
Right.
You know, we keep talking about our kids don't have anywhere to go. Well, we sit here and systemically watch city council not close them down, but take money out of the programs, and that is what effectively closed it.
Right.
So when you defund something, you close it.
Right.
That's what you do.
Right.
So we have sit here and watch slowly as the things that were important to our community be taken from us, be stripped from us, and we have set silent.
Right.
We have set silent. And then when someone talk about it, again, they a problem. They're a troublemaker.
So we got to bring the people to the polls.
Right.
Bring the people to the polls.
Just as an educator,
Right.
as an
Okay, come on, just
educator,
about to ask you.
a lot of the things we've been talking about, I see in our community. I think there's an idea on the youth that
Speak a little louder.
that we're going to take care of everything for you guys.
Right.
You know, that the adults in the community are going to do what's right,
Okay.
and that's not always the case.
Okay,
Right.
come on.
So, and I think that the students, like I said, they think they're not concerned with it. They're worried about prom. They're worried about their boyfriend or girlfriend and what's going to happen. So, a lot of the they don't get woke until they graduate
Right.
and they come face to face with these issues.
Has the school system failed our children?
That's tough. In a way, yes, and in a way, no. It's very, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but you can't expect, and like I tell my students,
Okay.
I challenge them all to be autodidactic. That
right.
means they
That's
learn
right.
for themselves
Okay.
and take ownership of their own education.
Yeah, that's good. sir.
Because
Yes, sir.
I tell them, I can't, like, I could be the
good.
best teacher in the world.
Right.
I can't do and make you know what I know.
Right.
You have to read that same material.
Right.
You have to come to the same conclusion. So I think, in a way, we have failed because I think one of you guys were talking about it earlier. You want the pastor or the preacher to express everything for you.
Right.
You have to be able to express yourself.
Right.
Because if you don't, people aren't going to look out for you. No matter how, we are a community, but we all have our own interests.
Right.
And if I expect you to look out for me, I'm wrong. I lost already.
Right.
So you have to educate yourself and be engaged. So in a way, I do think that our education system has failed, but it's failed because people think that you have to be taught. They don't. The responsibility is not there in the community. So I encourage all my students to be autodidact, to learn for yourself. There's no way that we can teach you what you need to know. You have to read it for yourself. You have to learn it for yourself. So,
But Mr. Guest, so let me I'm gonna paint this picture. A lot of these children, they go to school to get away from home.
oh
You
yeah,
feel
that's
what I'm
a
saying?
whole nother. And that
So-
goes back to the community.
What I'm saying is that I hear what you're saying, but your role as a teacher plays a big role in that student's life,
Yes.
right? So you've been a teacher for how long now?
It's about 8 years.
Right. Where do you think our children educationally are at?
I think we are failing. I've seen, and I don't really go by statistics and
Okay.
stats, but everything I've seen, I think African American or Black, Latino fall at the bottom.
Right.
Yeah, I think that they call it the achievement gap.
Okay.
And I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. What does it come from? I think community. What we're talking about, the school is a reflection of our community. So, and I went to school with Zeph. I went to school with a couple of people here. Honestly, when I talk to my brother or have candid conversations, I tell them we fail as a community. We fail our students. Our kids now are not in a better position than we were. As a matter of fact, they're worse.
Right.
So, and you could point the finger and say, oh, was it parent, the grandparent, the community? What exactly was it?
Right.
It's hard to pinpoint what exactly it was, but we did fail in this as a community.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to add real quick. I think it was Bill Clinton at the Honorable John Lewis funeral who said that Congressman Lewis was hide up under the porch
Yep.
while his sisters and brothers went out to the field to do the chores. And when he saw the school bus, he would make a dash for it. And I thought about you saying some of our kids go to school to get away from home. And that is absolutely true. You have both situations. You have them doing that, and then you have some that don't want to go to school because of the pressures and the bullying and things of that nature. But I think one thing that is absolutely clear, and you can look at study after study after study, when you look at where finances have gone within our school districts,
Okay.
and you look at the minority schools and you look at the Latino schools, they are severely underfunded
Come on,
compared to schools in other districts. So how can you say our children got to catch up? It's history again. Why did they march? Why did Rosa sit? So that we could have equality, so that we can bring us up to par. But we sit here in 2020 and a Carver High School can't get what a Columbus High School get. Or a Carver High School can't get what Northside High School get. And just because you give me a splosh every now and then and build a new facility don't mean I'm supposed to be happy. I want my child to have the most access to the highest level of technology because that's what interests them now. My 3-year-old knows how to maneuver my smartphone better than I do. We can't teach them 1960 tactics and expect them to operate in 2020. We got to bring the classroom and the school up to part of where we are today, and that requires people on the school board who understand the challenges of today. Once again, gentlemen, it goes back to voting. Who is your representative? Who's there calling the shots? Who's there saying where the money goes within the budget, the money that we pay? Your tax dollars. Even the brother who goes to the store and get that 6-pack and a pack of Newports, guess what? Some of those taxes come right back to the school district. So nobody should be excluded from that conversation.
Greg, give me something.
There you go.
Give me something.
I've been listening to this. I mean, I'm just in awe because the genius and the brilliance that is around this table.
Speak a little louder.
I'm in awe because of the genius around this table. Is awesome, and it goes back to me. It was once said that you can predict the future if you control the environment.
Right.
We're not going to do anything until we start controlling our own environment. That means we start controlling our own household.
Right.
We start controlling the voting system.
Right.
We start controlling getting our neighborhoods in order.
Right.
Because before we can hold other people accountable for us, we got to learn how to hold our own selves accountable.
Right.
Because we should be able to do for our own. And me growing up, I grew up in South Columbus off of Casita Road.
Oh, wow.
And when I graduated high school, I was a special ed student.
Okay.
I had a reading problem. I had a learning disability. I had the worst stuttering problem you could ever think of.
Come on now.
But like the brother said, but because I had a praying mother and I never left God and God never left me.
Right.
So I believe that once we have a spiritual value system and a spiritual foundational system, that the Bible says that through Christ we can do all things. And so if we look at who we are and where we are now, that if you go back and you read the Old Testament and when we hear God call the Hebrews stiff-necked, hard-headed people, we're no different than that today. Except for we're just in the 21st century.
Right,
So in order for us to go back, we got to go back to the foundation of what created us. And that's our creator, because we have become disconnected.
Right.
And that's why we're out here wandering in the wilderness.
Right. And that's a good point. I don't mean to stop you, but that's something that's me a question to you guys about our culture. Because I mean, we got to face some. I think what we're doing now, we would say we're woke. There's a segment of our culture that is, but to another segment, we're lames.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I feel that way. I don't know whether I'm wrong, but I posed that question to the group, and how our culture, like you were talking about, how do we bring that into the home when we don't have men in the home? When men in the home are not, you got this, you lame, right? You don't have your pants on low. You don't have, so there's culture that we have to address. And I think, it's a touchy point too, because, so I just put that question out there, because when you tuck your shirt in, you lame, right? You're lame. So I think there's a disconnect in segments of our community that I'm not fully, I don't have the answers for. So I just put that question: how do we come together? And it's even in the schools. They'll tell you, when we were growing up, when you did good grades, when you got good grades or aspired to be better, what was it? You were trying to be white, or you were acting white, or even when you talk. So I think in our community, we got to kind of confront that, and I'm not sure how to do it, but maybe you jump in.
We have platforms. Based on what
Let
you were saying.
me say this. I don't want to interrupt, but I've been
No,
wanting to say this for a while.
Yes, sir.
One thing that we are not hitting on, but we keep saying culture. And I want to say this in a way so it should not offend anybody.
Let's say it.
Come on.
We have to start speaking the truth.
Yes, sir. Come on now.
You have to start speaking the truth when it comes to our spirituality.
Right.
Start speaking the truth when it comes to our own culture.
Right.
Start speaking the truth when it comes to history.
That's right.
Not just one group's history, but all. I was listening the other day, and it was on Facebook. You get a lot of information off Facebook. But I believe it was, I forget his first name, but Reagan. And he was saying that, blacks are starting to talk a lot about they were this and other cultures were this. And he says something. I was kind of just listening. Because it's a matter of opinion, some things. But history is a record of facts.
Right.
You can't change it to what you want it to be. He stated that when the whites were in the Renaissance period, the Europeans were in Renaissance, then we were in the Dark Ages.
Right.
Blacks, Africans were in the Dark Ages. But that is the thought that talk about the education system. What could be some things that we could do different.
Yeah.
Is we could really educate our kids about each ethnic group's rightful place in history.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely.
And what that does is there's a book that is out that I read called Tribes.
Right.
And it looked at different tribes and specifically highlighted those that are really succeeding in a lot of different categories today.
Right.
It's your Caucasian,
Right.
it's your Indians, your Asians.
Right.
Now, other ethnic groups are doing well in some, but those are consistent across the board.
Right.
One thing they had was an understanding of who they were. The individual had a self-worth, which was valuable not only to the individual, but also the group understood the importance of the group and the individual's relationship to the group.
Right.
Third is they had a good work ethic.
Right.
Now, there's two out of those three things that have had African Americans confused for years.
Right.
And that is self-identity,
That's true.
as well as the group.
Right.
Yeah.
We're so divided, and that's because you talk about people frustrated, people wanting to fight, arguments, domestic violence, violence on the streets, black on black crime.
Right.
It comes out of frustration
Yeah.
because we are not comfortable within even our own culture as it's being taught to us.
Absolutely.
So when you start to understand, no, we were not in the dark ages,
Right.
but the Africans were the teachers of not only spirituality, religion, mathematics, science, medical science, history throughout the world.
Astronomy. And the
Astronomy,
richest-
the sciences, but that does not take away from another ethnic group.
Right.
But you cannot falsely give false claims to one group to history and expect them to have a good self-worth and self-identity as it relates to the group.
But if you acknowledge the truth, then your superior complex goes out the window.
And that's what we have to, but it's hard to acknowledge the truth if we're not giving that truth to our young children.
Listen
a lot
what
of
I said.
times
If
it's
we
not
acknowledge
until
the truth, their superior
right.
Yes.
complex goes out the window.
Yes.
You know, you'll be glad to hear that. Myself with Mr. Runzel Buckner, Dr. Judy Purnell, Miss what's her name?
5 minutes, gentlemen. 5 minutes.
The lady who ran Calvin's first campaign. What's her name?
Bennett Newell.
Benny Newell and a couple other community leaders. We have approached the school district. We've had meetings with the superintendent about implementing Black studies in the history of our people for our own students because they don't get that.
Right.
Our history, general American history, has been so whitewashed that you don't start to learn about Black people until we start coming over on ships.
And I don't mean to stop you, but
Go ahead. No,
all of
that's
that,
your-
we
this
could
your
set up
area.
we could set up the curriculum and we could train new teachers to teach exactly what we need,
Mhm.
and they may not do it.
Right.
Every classroom is different. And even every college. There were college classes like art history. Some teachers skip over the chapter on Africans in art. So it really does depend on the teacher because as a teacher, they want me to teach the standards, but I'm gonna teach my students what I think they need to know.
Right.
So I think it also depends on who you have in the classroom as a teacher, because even if you gave them the notes, okay, you say this, they're gonna say, oh, well, I don't really agree with that. Let me tell it was something
UGA
else.
didn't teach me that in my degree.
Exactly. So
2 minutes.
And let me say this too, because he started to hit on something. We have to make sure when we are teaching Black studies, African American studies, that we don't have the starting point of slavery.
Right.
Because then you're saying that you came from nothing and you came from being dominated to now everything you have, it's a token to you.
Right.
But if you take it before slavery, then you see that slavery was nothing but a glitch in history.
Right.
So you can get a child to attach itself to greatness.
And self-worth.
Yes.
So, listen, gentlemen, we're almost out of time. They're giving me the signal. But I'm going to say one more question, and then you guys just go from there, okay? What do you think this movement, it's not a moment, it's a movement, What do you think this movement is here to teach us as colored people? Let's be real. Just go down the line. Go ahead, Greg.
I think patience, forgiveness, and not forgetting whose we are.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Tim.
I think the movement is teaching us that the work never stops.
Okay.
You can't reject new leaders. We gotta have people to continue to carry the torch.
Okay.
So this systemic process of blocking out the next generation or the next people to carry the torch, we got to stop that, because we're finding ourselves in positions where too many of our generations are starting with leaders that are having to start over because no one pulled them in and say, hey, let me teach you this right here so we can move forward.
Succession on leadership.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Just
you're right.
saying.
As an educator, I always say this. A lot of our students think it's over. We read that we have no school on MLK Day. We won. They were successful, but they weren't. That fight, we're going to have to continue to struggle that identity as African Americans or Black. Some people don't even like to be called African Americans now. So that identity is constantly changing, and it's not over. We're going to have to still put that work in.
So,
Yeah, well, one, it's teaching a lot of things.
okay.
I like to say three. One is one that Marshall Countryman, soon to be sheriff, hinted on,
Right.
and that is patience.
Okay.
You know, the key to success is patience.
Okay.
Okay. And then the second is likened to it is the cost to live on earth is sacrifice.
Right. Come on now.
You know, and the Bible teaches us that Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice for us.
Right.
And we also have a sacrifice to make for our lot that we take up here on earth
Right.
while we're here.
Right.
Then the third thing is, it is on you. We cannot have a welfare mentality going forward.
Right.
And that is that somebody else is going to take care of you.
Right.
But there's personal responsibility in
Okay.
this
Got you.
if you want to be successful
Got you.
and if you want change.
Got you. Pastor, what is this movement here to teach? This movement here to teach us?
I think it's value. I think if it's teaching us nothing, it's two things: how to suffer, right? Because you're gonna suffer,
Right.
right? But nothing worth having is easily obtained.
Okay.
So you find your value, you find your crown. No matter who you are, what your ethnicity is, you have a crown. You are of a royal priesthood, no matter how you cut this cloth. And you should walk and live as such. And I think that if a lot of youth knew that they weren't their father's mistakes, they weren't the abusive relationship, they weren't the drug addict, they aren't the gang member, the thought, or whatever word we want to come up with that says culture behind it. We're bigger than that. We're greater than that. And I think the more that we become aware of our value, a lot of these things become a way for us to have a conversation like that.
Absolutely. So worth and value
Right.
and accountability, self-accountability and self-growth and responsibility is important and essential to making the changes that we need in our communities. I want to thank each and every one of you gentlemen for coming in and sharing the wisdom and knowledge.
This
And
won't be the last. This
I mean,
won't be the
this
last.
will not be the last. I work in the mental health field, and we get a lot of young people coming in who need this information.
Right.
So we are going to be having a mental health rally here in August. And we will be filling y'all in on the details. We definitely want y'all to be involved with it, and we want everyone else who are tuning in to join us in that. We will be posting more information. Leonidas Adams, Angel Adams on Facebook, and Matthew Sanchez on Facebook. So
Thank you again, gentlemen.
thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Really, thank
And
you.
I hope that this
Thank you for having me.
summit has informed y'all on what you need to do to help bridge the gaps in our community. Thank you again. Stay tuned.